let's get into it, Eric. I'm glad you're here for this segment because Shelby does live in Maui. Like I said, she helped co-author this book called Burn Back Better. And a lot of people will kind of tie what happened in Maui to the fourth industrial revolution. This is not a made-up story when I tell you that 2 months before this fire ripped through Lahaina, their governor, Governor Green, if I'm correct, Josh Green, his name is, he was the keynote speaker for 15 minutes sustainable cities at the UN. Literally the keynote speaker for 15 minutes sustainable cities in the UN. And he's always flirted with the idea that he wants to make Maui a sustainable city. And I think that a lot of people can say that when it comes to a lot of lawmakers that are tied into the fourth industrial revolution or the World Economic Forum or the WHO, because they say the word sustainable. And we just did this segment Left on Left where the left gets duped all the time. And, you were a Bernie Sanders supporter at one point, Eric. They kind of have the wool pulled over their eyes and they get duped in walking into their own death and following the plans of the Klaus Schwabs and the World Economic Forum. So when you talk about Maui, there's a lot of suspicions there. And this is not just Shelby talking about this in her own personal opinions. I've been on the ground twice. I've done a documentary. People are very pissed off at the lack of transparency, and they are constantly talking about the fact that Josh Green was the keynote speaker for 15 Minutes Sustainable Cities, and they are very pissed off that there's no transparency where a lot of their elected officials are tied to these types of entities like the World Economic Forum. So it's a crazy, crazy, crazy story. Even though the mainstream media has left and is not talking about it, it's like a long baseball game. They're only in the second inning. The top of the second inning. This thing is going to play out over the next several years in the courtrooms and the city halls, in the governor's chambers, with our lawmakers, in the streets of Maui, in the boroughs, everywhere. This is going to be a hard-fought battle. And right now, people are suffering, and the mainstream media is not reporting on it. So I can't wait to do this segment. You guys ready to get into it?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay, first up to bat. This guy was in the first one over here. This is Kelly, and
Love
he's pretty
Kelly.
awesome. What's that?
Love Kelly.
Yes. Kelly is known, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shelby, he goes up and down the freeway on a unicycle, right?
He sure does.
You can see this dude going up and down the freeway in the unicycle. If you haven't seen the first film, Lahaina on Fire Volume 1, go ahead and take a look at it. This guy has a lot to say. He's awesome. But the problem that's taking place right now, the biggest problem on Maui is housing. Right. So there could be up to 9,000 unhoused survivors at one point, and more than half of them still haven't found housing. And this really ties into our whole isms, right? Capitalism versus socialism. What responsibilities does the government have? What should they do? Can they force short-term housing to be long-term? How do they get it done? Should they just go out there and, I say, overpay for it? But when there's incentives that if you can take in a fire victim and you can get 3 times the rent, there's incentives to throw the people who are living in those units out. So listen to Kelly right over here. He's talking to our good friend Alfie from Rebuild Maui. Alfie, we've done the story on the Jimmy Dore Show, was trying to build small houses, little dome houses. He was working with Ellie Cochran, the lawmaker, who is actually the state assemblywoman for Lahaina. And there's an issue with housing. We'll get to that in a second. But look at this problem over here, and let's get their opinions from Eric and Shelby in just a second. Here's Kelly.
All right, I'm here with Kelly. He's a fire survivor, and we were just talking about his living situation.
So about 25 days after the fire, I got a call from MEO, and MEO offered me a place, stating that somebody had wanted to put me in their apartment. I said, sure, I'll do it. I was living in the park in the medical tent with all the medical people, and we were making sure at night everything was safe. I went into the apartment. I've been there for like 4 months.
Okay, and then you just found out you have to leave, or you're getting kicked out, right?
Yeah, I'm being kicked
Why?
out. Because they got another person from GEM that's coming in, and I don't know who GEM is affiliated with, Red Cross or FEMA, and they're putting a new guy in my condo and pushing me out.
So why did your landlord decide to leave MEO and work with Gem?
Well, she claims that MEO wouldn't cover me. And then MEO says, yeah, we've been trying to get a hold of her, sending her text messages and emails, but they didn't say nothing. They don't,
Is Gem offering her more money than MEO is?
Yeah, way more.
Do
But you know what? If you look at it business-wise, it's not right. There's no integrity there. It's just that I'm not the only one they're doing this to. They're doing this to a lot of people.
And when you say this, you mean kicking out? You're kicking out Lahaina residents to house other fire survivors. But what's a shame is you are a fire survivor who lost their house.
Yeah, and the guy that she owns 2 apartments. The owner in there. So the other guy that's in the other one, he's getting kicked out too, and replaced by a couple. There's a couple moving into his place.
Because your landlord's getting paid more through Gem than with MEO.
Yeah.
Significantly more. Yeah, there's supposed to be some policies in place to prevent that from happening. We don't want to see Lahaina families getting kicked out just so they can house another fire surviving family, just so they can make more money. That doesn't fix the problem that we're in.
Right. Yeah, it's really a shame. But
how long have you lived in Lahaina?
9 years.
Yeah, man. I'm really sorry to hear that, brother.
I'm going through a lot too, the fire, then my sister dies, then my brother dies at Christmas, and now I'm being kicked out, and then I'm looking for other places all over the island. I'm doing as much as I can. I'm still volunteering, helping people, driving to the other side. I love it. And then all my friends, I lose all my friends in the town of Lahaina. All of them, Keith and Rick, and they're all gone. Everybody's gone.
Yeah.
I miss that because, I would go down Front Street, drink my coffee in the morning with all the guys. It's sad, bro. This is just sad. My whole life is upside down. But I love everyone. What would we do without Aloha?
Yeah, brother.
So,
Kelly,
thank you,
man. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. We'll be all right. You know how we survive. Yeah. We're survivors. We fight, We rebuild. We do what we have to do. I was in there yesterday looking at the tree and looking at all the stuff. Man, it's hard, bro. But thank you. Yeah. Let everybody know.
Thank you, brother.
So there's a situation here right now where, people, not just like Kelly, who, was in a place for 4 months. There have been people in there for 30, 40 years in some places, I heard, Shelby, that, all of a sudden got to go because, when there's greed involved, when there's money involved, that's going to happen. Now, at the end of the day, if you're a landlord or if you own the property and somebody's going to offer you so much more, it's going to be hard not to turn that down, to kick that person out, to get 3 times the rent. What responsibility does the state have here to make sure that these people now, because you don't want to create another problem by displacing somebody who's displaced and you place them and then you create another displaced person, right? It's just like the craziness. What responsibilities does the state have and what should they be doing? You have a little bit more insight because you're on the island there, Shelby. Go ahead.
So, well, I feel that this is being perpetuated by the state on purpose, 100%, to cause a mass exodus and get people to continually leave the island. There is a lot of open land here. We already had materials to build tiny houses or homes. We could have been doing this for 7 months straight, but instead, nobody can get a permit. Nobody can get a land spot. Nobody can get this. Maui County has so much red tape. They don't want anybody to build a home because they don't want you to build a new home to replace you. They want you to get off of the island because they need less people here. They're planning on taking Lahaina, as far as I'm concerned. And it is happening. I've watched so many friends and family get kicked off of this island because of this tragedy. And yes, they are getting replaced by fire survivors, but still it's perpetuating this ongoing displacement. And when does it end? I mean, even my mom and myself, we talk about it every day. You know, my landlord could absolutely kick me and my 3 children out, and she would rent this house that I'm in for more than $11,000 a month from FEMA and the state. They're paying just out the ass, quite frankly, for I mean, a studio starts at $5,000. So it just goes on from there. And, you know, if you're a homeowner getting 2,000 plus on a rental, and you could make 11 grand on one and get a huge tax break, that is what they're doing. And sadly too, it's I mean, gosh, I could just go on about it forever. But a lot of these people too are not even homeowners. They're on the mainland. They don't live here on Maui. They don't get to witness what is happening. They just make these decisions online or over the phone. It's just very cut and dry. They don't ever see in person what is happening to these people. And you know, I saw Governor Greed, like it was like yesterday. He goes, "Oh, well, we still have almost 900 short-term rentals that we need to, you know, get rented to fire survivors." And quite frankly, it's bullshit that they were owned by the mainland. It's like, this is not a surprise. This has been this way for a very long time. And instead of giving people solutions to rebuild new homes without permit process, that would have been a proper solution. Instead, they would just rather get people off the island. Goodbye.
Eric, we sat at a table at the Rebels for a Cause event where there's people of different isms, right? Like I thought I was that token leftist right there, where I believed in central planning somewhat. And, you know, I consider myself to be a leftist libertarian. What right does the government have to come in and kind of throw their weight around as far as making these people who have short-term housing long-term? What role should the government play when it comes to this here and what you're seeing in Maui?
I mean, what should they play and what are they doing? What Shelby said is terrifying. What they do is they thumb the scale in every way, shape, and form. Before the 2020 election, I watched Hunter Biden's sex tape because I'm a freak. And his dick face and asshole were in the same screen. The same screen. I watched that, you know, out of respect for America's first loser. He was smoking crack, having sex with whores. And he was asked on national television, "Was that you?" He goes, "I was hacked. I'm the victim. I was hacked. That was Russia." So he's thumbing the scale with whatever brain cell he has left to lie as advised by his lawyers. I'm a victim. I was hacked by Russia. His dick, face, and asshole, same screen, same framing. And I'm jealous. It was girthy. It was beautiful. It was photogenic, his penis. So they did it. And then any journalist who would say anything about this was squashed because then they thumbed the scale of ballots. Then they lie about how many votes Biden had. They said he had more than Obama when his main campaign speech was smelling hair and filling his diaper with as much feces as possible. So now let's go to Lahaina. What is the worst possible thing you could do for displaced residents? Let's put fake fiat money in the pockets of landlords and incentivize them to ship out any locals. That's the worst possible. Let's turn on the money printing machine to throw out as much fake money as possible so that our neighbor turns against our neighbor instead of decapitate like 5 pedophiles, which would change everything. So, you know, they have us fight our neighbors and our friends with these incentives because they own the fake printing machine of the money system. And yeah, can I put one more thing? You said before this all happened, there was the keynote speaker of 15-minute cities. I interviewed Andrew Meyer, who was the guy who said, "Don't tase me, bro," right as he was at John Kerry's speech talking about Bohemian Grove or the Skull and Bones. He was tased, dragged out of there. What was he? So Tim Russert was the interviewer who interviewed George W. Bush and John Kerry before their fake battle, their fake debate. And he goes, you guys are both a member of the same frat. What does that mean for America? Okay. Then he died of his heart exploded spontaneously. Who was the keynote speaker at his funeral? George Bush Jr., the new retarded president who came in, MK Ultra president who came in, the Nepo baby of Herbert Walker Bush came in. He was the keynote speaker of the funeral of the guy he just murdered, who asked the question that was not allowed to be asked in the fake press. So now you have these WEF shills accidentally on purpose saying what is about to happen to the slaves on the chessboard, and then they do all that shit. And it's good karma for them because they told the surface monkeys what they did first. So then if they can't stop them, laws of the jungle, baby. If the tiger, is in the prairie and the zebra can't run fast enough, laws of the jungle. If we put our keynote WEF mind control slave and tell you the game plan and you don't behead them and you're too much of a wuss to use a directed energy weapon on their private jet on the way out, what comes around goes around, baby. That's just the rules of the jungle. That is how sick these people are. That is how they have the same, I don't know if it's a freaky spirit from the underworld, like some kind of jester from a different dimension, but they always have the same game plan. You're too dumb to know what I've already told you I'm going to do. Yeah. I'm going to explode your heart, and then I'll be the keynote speaker. Shut up.
Oh, I am so getting deplatformed from YouTube today. I got the proper guest for it, right? So this is something to pay attention. Now, listen, I don't have the solution to this problem at all, right? Like, I think that it's going to take a good, crafty government to really actually govern for the people and not the donor class, because there's so much stuff that's going on. What Shelby had talked about when it came to the small, tiny houses, which we'll get to, I was driving out my last trip and I saw those houses just stacked up. And I'm like, dude, these houses, stacked. These small houses were here months ago. And, I talked to Ellie Cochran. I talked to other people, the homeowners association, not allowing these things go. You talk about red tape, ladies and gentlemen. Shelby isn't lying. And look at the prices of these houses. Here's another video by Alfie from Rebuild Maui on Instagram. Alfie's in the first video. I didn't catch up to him and Kelly in the second one. But I got a lot of Shelby, so that's good. But look at the prices of the housing here now in Lahaina.
An inside look at what the rental market looks like right now for families who've been displaced by the Maui fires. Here we have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square feet for just under $15,000 a month. Now I'm going to take you through the other listings that are available in the Lahaina area, and it really doesn't look good. We've got a studio. It's approximately 400 square feet, and it's $2,300 a month. This is a studio. Okay, and then we have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 578 square feet for $3,200 a month. Here we have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet for $5,500 a month. And then it jumps all the way up to this $15,000 a month home. So if you're wondering why it's taking so long for families to get out of the hotel shelters and into state,
that's why.
Like right now, for families who've been displaced by the Maui fires. Here we have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,000 square feet for.
That's good. And you're wondering why it is so hard for people to get out of this pickle. Shelby,
it's disgusting.
Do not miss a payment, girl. I don't want to have to go try to talk to the new neighbors there and get that avocado tree, for myself. But I mean, all kidding aside, it must be scary as hell to be put in that predicament. Please give us your thoughts on what's going on in the pricing, because it's only going to get higher.
It's completely terrifying. And actually, in all honesty, the house I was living at when you came to visit, they sold it right after the fires, and of course, it's changed hands. And so when I was already doing the move after the fire, I was seeing rentals no less than $7,000 just to get in the door, first month deposit, add it on and on and on. And that's just for basics. So this 14,000, it's not a joke. Like, it's not just a one-off place. It's literally everywhere. And it is pretty scary. And what's the gain? I think just to get people to leave, just to push inflate and push the prices so sky high that people are going to need the government programs to just keep living. And the government wants us to be more reliant on them, really, quite frankly. And I think that's what we're seeing here too. And this is just housing. You can imagine, the other costs here on Maui too. It's completely unsustainable. A gallon of milk is $15. So how do you pay your rent and your groceries? It's they're doing this on purpose.
Eric, so $15,000 a month is $180,000 for a rental for the year, and then you own nothing. Like, what financial person what stingy fiscal conservative would say, you know what, that sounds good. Maybe it's just a puddle jumper on the way to Epstein's Island. Like, who would rent that for a year? Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, FEMA and the government, they're totally happy to do it. And, I think that too, it's part of their eminent domain. Once they get homeowners to sign this paperwork, sure, FEMA, and what happens is the landlords actually relinquish their right to their property. So FEMA is the landlord. They are allowed to set the payments, kick out your people, keep them there. You don't get any more say. And so if all of these homeowners they're just essentially giving them their domain. Here you go, have it. And then the government's going to decide how long they get to house people for, whatever that might be.
And a lot of these houses are owned by like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. They're there. There's another one coming on the island. We'll get to that in a second. But this is Governor Josh Green, Shelby's favorite governor. Maui fires, money for victims, housing for survivors are Hawaii's governor's priorities. The state will pay West Maui property owners up to $11,000 per month to rent homes to fire survivors, Governor Josh Green said Tuesday, outlining a new phase of multifaceted initiative to help victims of the August 8 fires that killed 101 people and destroyed much of Lahaina. Oh, how nice of them to get it up to 101. They were holding still in 95. I never seen a death count go from like 125 back to 95, now to 101. It's kind of like when you're testing your internet, it's swaying in between a certain area. They're downplaying this whole thing, ladies and gentlemen. When you go up by Lahaina, by the baseball field over there, when I met with Ellie Cochran, I went up there and I counted all the people dead. It was way over 100 people. And that's just people that put up a memorial over there, plus a bunch of ribbons of people missing. They're downplaying that issue. And I asked, why are they downplaying? She doesn't know exactly why. She can't speak for other people that she can't get in her mind. But it's definitely something they're downplaying because they don't want this to be like a big tragedy. The governor's renewed appeal to property owners came as he unveiled a long-anticipated legal settlement fund for people killed or injured by the fires. The $175 million fund will provide $1.5 million each to families of those who perished. While details of the settlement fund headline Green's presentation, the governor used the occasion to provide an update on housing for fire survivors. FEMA and the state have made progress in their finding homes for thousands of households displaced by the fires, including people who have been living in hotel rooms for months. FEMA has secured just under 1,500 units under a program where it leases properties to be used by fire victims, but only a third of the units are in West Maui, where people work and have children in school. As a result, relatively few places elsewhere on Maui have been moved into. And that's the thing. They're moving them off island. A consequence Green said he's seeking to secure 850 additional units in West Maui from property owners now using the properties as short-term rentals for tourists. That's the thing we talk about. How can they force these people to do so? The state will pay up to $5,000 per month for a one-bedroom home, $7,000 for 2 bedrooms, $9,000 for 3 bedrooms, and a home up to $11,000 for a home with 4 bedrooms. Along with the inducement, Green issued a threat saying if the 850 homes were not secured by the end of March, he would issue a moratorium on short-term rentals in West Maui until the state has secured homes it needs. I'm not playing around, he said. People have been in hotels for quite a long time, and it's very difficult. Even before the Maui fires, Green had stressed the need for more housing in Hawaii. Running on housing issue as a candidate and issuing an expansive emergency proclamation on housing as a bold early step in his tenure. The wildfires have further highlighted the problem, Green said. A campaign to convert short-term vacation rentals for tourists into long-term homes for residents is now at the top of his agenda. But how do people really feel about what's going on? And this is from the Star of Isaac. The other one was from the Honolulu Beat. How is Maui's short-term rental conversion for wildfires survivors going? Vote below, then comment in our online poll. Well, 12.5. Not well, system slow, 62.5. And disagree, 25. I know it's only 16 votes, but that's what's going on. Shelby sent me this. And this is what they talked about. An additional 850 STR units needed in West Maui until long-term housing is built. We are prepared to offer $5,000 for the 1, $7,000 for the 2, $9,000 for the 3, $11,000 for the 4, and to offer, and that's 4 bedrooms, of course, to offer your STR, go to helpingmaui.org and offer up your opinion. Let's bring the panel back on in to talk about this over here. This is a crazy situation, guys. I do think at the end of the day, they are really exacerbating this problem because they don't want to provide these solutions. What we're not getting to is as people are struggling and continue to talk about housing, they're not talking about the cleanup that's going on, the lack thereof the cleanup. I was there 30 days after the fire and 100 days after the fire. The majority of the stuff you can see over the fence, Shelby, and correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me I'm fucking lying here if I'm not lying. It still looks like it hasn't been touched. Where's the Army Corps of Engineers? Where's the cleanup crews? What's going on? Why is this being left for so long? How come they can't figure this out? If they had the short-term housing, right, the tiny houses, put them up, have these people be part of the cleanup solution, give them good paying jobs, you wouldn't have so much displacement and so many of these arguing with this housing situation. And Lahaina today, if we were allowed to clean this place up, would be further along than it is right now today. Go ahead, Shelby Hosanna.
I can really pop off on this one because it's beyond me what is happening right now. And you're exactly right. Most of the debris is 100% still there. I actually got to go through Front Street and all of the burn zone about a month ago and saw it for myself. The anomalies are extensive. I can only imagine how much evidence they have taken out of there for the last 6 months. It's just disgusting. But what happened is they got this bright idea, the Army Corps of Engineers, that we should just build a temporary dump site in Oluwalu, just a few miles down the road, and let's poison the whole entire Mother Wreath system over there. It's not a big deal. It's going to be a temporary site. And what they did is they did not get consensus on this. They actually dug into the mountain immediately after the fire. They never told anybody that they were building this temporary dump. And then they lined it with these plastic liners. They said, don't worry, we're going to put down 400,000 cubic tons of topsoil. And then we're going to take the ash in Lahaina. We're going to wrap it in plastic burritos. And then we're going to just dump it on that topsoil that we put on that liner. And don't worry about it. It's not going to poison anything. And then yesterday they decided, well, we accidentally didn't do our math right on Oluwalu dump site. It's actually already full. The dump site is already full 1 month into cleanup. They've only made it through Waiakuli neighborhood. And now they've decided they're going to take the debris to the Central Maui landfill. You guys, that's Kahului. They're going to now take the toxic ash and debris to a third location to destroy it for no reason. They determined that it would cost $5 billion to appropriately take the debris off island and get rid of it. And instead, they just pretended like they could not get that funding. How interesting. You know, we could send $6 billion to Ukraine in an accounting error, but we can't pay $5 billion to appropriately clean up toxic debris on this beautiful island. And it just, uh, it's, I mean, I guess I'm so shocked to watch it unfold. There's not like a whole lot of pushback. And it just seems like people are set on, if the lots are cleared and we have this dirt lot, we're all going to get our land back. But what are we going to sacrifice in the meantime? We're going to actually poison everything.
Yeah.
It's quite confusing.
And here it is. You sent this to me. Central Maui landfill chosen for final disposal of Lahaina wildflower debris. About 150 Lahaina residents broke into cheers and a round of applause Wednesday night at the Lahaina Civic Center when the Central Maui landfill was announced as the final disposal site for an estimated 400,000 cubic yards of toxic ash and debris from the August 8th wildfire. But it seems now they're shuffling around. Who knows what's going on? There's the meeting. There's the landfill, and there's the Central Maui landfill. What is the update on that now, Shelby?
Well, so they only approved it last night. So this is the first day, and I've obviously seen just a lot of keyboard warriors out there. A lot of people are very upset about it, but for the people who are out there cheering, I don't even know. I guess I'm mind bent on that. Who would be cheering at poisoning another side of the island? But what's also interesting is what people aren't talking about is this cleanup process. The homeowners don't get to choose who's cleaning up the property.
Yeah.
The state of Hawaii is in charge of these cleanups, and the cleanups are taking what I'm hearing approximately about a week to clear a property. Over 6 figures per property is what it costs to clean up the destruction. They're also finding bodies every single day in these houses and in these buildings, and they're picking them up and they're taking them to the dump because they're getting paid 6 figures a property. And just to touch back on that as well, the 101 people, that is 100% a fabrication and a lie. I personally know my own friends that we could get up to 1,000 people probably. And I think also Lahaina is going to have trouble moving on and properly taking care of this land and their property because we haven't acknowledged the actual tragedy. There's still so many souls that have zero accountability and justice for their life that they lost. So, this cleanup process is it's a poltergeist of a situation.
It's a money laundering scheme too, as well. We can see that it's turned into that. People are licking their chops. Eric, jump in there. You got anything to say about this? They're using death and destruction to profit and line their own pockets. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that it's only fair that the bankers get the squatters' rights. I think that's right. I think if you're trying to be a sovereign citizen and you put solar panels on a Winnebago in a state park, I think rangers should kick the door in and they should murder your family. They don't care that you met the squirrel. They don't care that you speak honey badger. They don't care that the mountain lion knows when you wake up and he has coffee with you and hangs out. No. What we need is more imperialism. Now, let me tell you about the problem of accountants, because I met some in my life and I've vomited several times within 3 seconds of a conversation with an accountant because they literally think everything is a spreadsheet. For example, my apartment here is 30% occupied. I just got a new proposal letter in the mail. They want to up my rent because they put it on a spreadsheet by $150. And I Xeroxed a copy in my butthole and I sent that into the corporate office.
Nice.
No, you're 30% occupied, and these fake spreadsheets from creeps. I'm like, but they're like, well, if they're autistic pedophiles. Well, if we have this many people and then we have this much money, it's never right. You can't charge $15,000 for a 3-bedroom house in Maui. It's just supply and demand, you know. And if you crease the side of the comic book, it loses value. I mean, they're like autistic, number dum-dums. So, and they're all programmed the same way. And that's the problem with central banking. That's the problem with central rule. They don't even, it's like, you know, Justin Castro will put on blackface to, like, you know, ingratiate himself with the black community. You know, these people they're so out of touch. It's embarrassing. When they speak, it's embarrassing. And so, you know, like Hillary Clinton trying to pretend to an interviewer that she keeps hot sauce in her purse.
Yeah.
You know,
I think Joe Biden did something very. Yeah, Hillary Clinton said she keeps hot sauce in her purse to a bunch of black people in the South to try to kind of, you know,
to be cool.
She said I keep hot sauce in my purse, right? She was trying to woo them. Shelby mentioned this before too. Well, this is Free Hawaii TV. I know they sound a little bit off the wall, the dude who kind of does the announcement, but they're going to talk about the small housing project. Listen to this. Take a look, and this is Free Hawaii TV.
Free Hawaii TV.
Aloha Aina. I'm Ehuke Kahu Cardwell with the Kiwani Foundation here on Free Hawaii TV, a part of the Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network. Last week here on Free Hawaii TV, we shared with you the latest statistics of residents who survived the Lahaina fire but lost everything in the process. We told you that over half of the survivors still do not have permanent housing and are still being shuffled from hotel to hotel. We also told you that only 11% of fire survivors have actually been moved into permanent housing. Now there are new developments to report, and we'll tell you the news is not good. Recently, the Washington Post published an article about tiny homes that had been shipped to Maui to house fire victims. But sadly, the article says this. According to the story, 88 of these tiny homes have been erected so far. The plan was to allow fire victims and their families to live in them rent-free for 2 years. But instead, all 88 of these homes are doing this. So why are they sitting empty instead of housing Lahaina fire survivors who have lost everything? Restrictive local zoning laws, long permitting wait times, and opposition from the powerful local construction industry is why these homes are sitting empty. According to the Washington Post article, Maui has no specific tiny home policy established.
All right, so let's bring in
funding for.
Let's bring in the panel back in the panel into play, guys. This is crazy, right? Because there's so many emergency proclamations. They're talking about ending the moratorium on the temporary housing, the short-term housing. Why can't the governor just have an emergency proclamation to put up these houses in certain areas? They have the area. Why can't they do it? It's because they don't want to fix the problem. Because just like Ukraine, they turn this into a money laundering scheme. The majority of those houses that are going to be bought up by all these big corporations, we've talked about BlackRock, Vanguard, right? A lot of the people who are renting those houses, a lot of people who own those houses that got burnt down to a crisp, no longer own those houses. They don't have the paperwork to show. People are getting evicted, like evicting notice going on their credit and stuff. They got thrown out of their houses, and there's no moratorium to put up there's no emergency proclamation to put up these small houses. It's just mind-boggling because they can do that in a heartbeat. Not to mention the Mayor Bison, Governor Green, they touted that this cleanup process was going to be done by local businesses. Now we find out, and they're not being transparent once again, the lack of transparency is just nuts, that they're contracting companies from the mainland to come in, and they're soaking up that money. Everywhere you look, there's a scandal in Maui. Eric, why don't you start on this one first, too, as well? Doesn't it make common sense? Why have an emergency proclamation for a moratorium on temporary small short-term housings to be long-term? And why don't I have an emergency proclamation to put the tiny homes up?
Because that's not their goal. Their goal is not this. Did you notice that earlier it was $1.5 million for a dead body? And then, so that's 6. 1.1 plus 5 is 6. We have to stand 6 feet apart. There was something else about there was $1,500 for a one.
Yeah, I saw that. You're right.
So it's like 6. It's always 6, 6, 6, right? And so you have to understand what the goals of the creeps and the weirdos are to understand. Then it all of a sudden everything kind of makes sense. The fog kind of veils. Here's the difference between dead people and alive people. Alive people, you put them in a tiny house, then they start complaining. Then they start to fight with their neighbor. Then they start to make garbage. Humans are cockroaches. But if we take poison ash, we'll just put it in the Central City dump because it shuts up. Let's applaud the poison ash, but the actual people that were displaced, and we have a pile of tiny homes, that sounds like a headache. I want to get reelected to silence with my virtue signaling and my policies.
Yeah. Shelby, your thoughts. You know this situation more than others. Why are these homes sitting empty? This is mind-blowing.
Well, it's on purpose. Obviously, 100%. One, they knew it was easier to kill people than to deal with them. Now it's a lesson of stamina. How many people can we get to leave the island by not giving them any resources, making sure they don't have any housing, and then we'll continue it for months on end, and we'll see how many people can survive. And that's what's happening. It's, where's the incentive, to put tiny homes in people's yards as little Ohanas? We could have tiny homes in a yard everywhere, helping people rehouse themselves, tax breaks for people like that. Where's any of the local community getting offered ways to help? There's not a reason that every single one of those tiny homes couldn't have already been built on county land. There is so much county land sitting empty. They could have put it somewhere. They just don't want to. That's it.
Yeah, it's true. Listen, in the movie Lahaina on Fire Volume 2, we start off with some tiny homes, and one person who had a property where there was no homeowners association was allowed to put a survivor in their yard, and they did so. So we were setting up a tiny home in somebody's yard, and I was like, man, if more people would do this situation would be a lot better. But a lot of other places are not, because the homeowner associations won't allow them to do it. Now, the Lahaina Strong people are pretty awesome. Those were a lot of the people that came together from the distribution centers, were some of the leaders now in Lahaina Strong. And at the point that I went there, they called it fishing for housing, or fishing for Lahaina. They had used a loophole in the law which said that if you're fishing on the beach, these are ancestry laws, you're allowed to camp out there. So they set up all these tents. And what's the name of the beach that they did it on in Hanakauai?
Hanapali Beach.
Hanakapali, right?
Kanapali Beach. Yeah.
Kanapali. Thank you. See, I get all the words mixed up. Kanapali Beach, which is a fancy kind of outdoor mall. They said $28 burgers are right over there, but they set up all these tents with all these fishing poles, and they're hunkering down until they have a solution. Now, the great thing about it now, what I love about Lahaina Strong is that they've morphed into understanding that they have to fight this in the halls of Congress, in the state and local bodies of legislation, the legislators. So they're inside all these bills. They're trying to stop that gouging, the throwing the people out, putting on people's credit history by throwing them out and giving them evicting notices when they've lost their job, their house, and everything. Here's a little video from the Lahaina Strong people, and I'm really proud of what they're doing, and I can't wait to speak to them more. Alfie turned them on to me, but one of the guys, Capono, who was one of the he was at the distribution center at what's the name of that beach?
And Hanakauai or
Hanakauai.
Yeah.
Yes. See, thank you so much. He was also down in Lahaina Strong. The one thing was bad, though. They sold me a Lahaina Strong shirt, and it was a woman's shirt. But I had to give it to my friend Angelica Duenas, and she appreciated it. So I don't have a Lahaina Strong shirt, but my camera guy and the editor of Lahaina on Fire Volume 2, George Dawson, he has a fucking shirt. So I'm very jealous that he has one. Maybe you can go down
I'll
and grab
send
me
you
one.
I'm going to find you one and send you one.
A men's large, not a woman's large. Because a woman's large is still too tight. You know what I'm saying? I was walking around like on the runway. But take a look at this video right over here. They're still, like I said, I'm so proud. You'll see Junior. And I forgot the young lady's name. Both Junior and that young lady, the one lady who is at the board in the beginning, the Holly, the white girl. And that was the thing. The people in Hawaii are so awesome. Like, she didn't want to speak at first. And because she wanted the locals and some of the indigenous people to speak. But it was some of the indigenous people who said, no, you go speak. You're just like us. We're in this together. And those distribution centers, it was the locals, the indigenous, the Howleys, everybody coming together to make sure that they took care of their neighbors, because the Red Cross and FEMA were dragging, and of course the state and county governments were dragging their feet. Here's Lahaina Strong. Take a look at this.
I'm Lahaina Strong. Of course, we're tracking over 100 bills.
I'm Lahaina Strong. Of course, I want to support bills that phase out short-term rentals.
I'm Lahaina Strong. Of course, I'm going to read Bill SB 3381 and question your intentions, and if you have Kalina to Lahaina.
Junior Strong. Of course, I'm going to make one live first thing in the morning. What's up?
I am Lahaina Strong. Of course, I sent in my testimony in support for HB 1838 and SB 2919.
I'm Lahaina Strong. Of course, I watched the governor's conference where he called the number of short-term rentals in Hawaii bullshit.
I'm Lahaina Strong. Of course, I'm pissed off that 87% of our remaining housing in Upper West Maui is short-term rentals, and over 25% of our Lahaina displaced community moved off island.
Yes, sir. I am Junior Strong. Of course, I'm going to yell at you in my testimony.
We are Lahaina Strong. Of course, we're going to keep you updated on all the legislative action happening this session.
Sign up for our email updates, link in bio.
We had Junior over there. Yo, Pasta, tomorrow Maui is voting on a land grab. Bill SB 3381. Yes, they're tracking all these bills. They're staying on top of this. It's really awesome that they're doing this. Lahaina Strong has really morphed into something special. Let's bring back in our panel. Listen, I went down and I saw that Junior's awesome. Junior was cooking over there in the kitchen. The first young lady on the board, I forgot her name. She's in my film too as well. It's really awesome what they were doing there and really holding it down. But this is definitely a quagmire. But I do think the big problem is the fact that they can't get these tiny homes up is the biggest problem. But what are your thoughts, Shelby, on what Lahaina Strong is doing over there and how they've become such a what's the word, like a rock for the community over there?
Yeah. They definitely needed to have that camaraderie and come together to put that voice out for Lahaina. And it's interesting to actually watch the government of Hawaii actually go out of their way to ignore Lahaina Strong. Just recently ago, they had a parade, a walk of honor held by this group called the Lele Group. And this Lele Group invited Governor Green and Bisson to come march in this parade of solidarity. And Lahaina Strong said, I'm sorry, why weren't we even invited? Who's the Lele Group? And what is happening? And so I think Lahaina Strong is becoming powerful enough that that the government is becoming afraid, because they are educating people on these bills and how to stay informed and what is going on with the land grab. And I just heard, actually, it was maybe yesterday during that central landfill talk, that this Lele community members, whoever they are, 9 of them have been appointed into a council to help the planning for the future of Lahaina. So none of the Lahaina Strong members were actually chosen for the council. These random group of 9, obviously selected and paid off people, were put in there. And so, yeah, I commend Lahaina Strong. They're still down at the beach. It's been really hard during this winter swell. They've had to totally build trenches. They've had to push it back even closer to the resort because the sand blast and the tide in the winter here, especially, the ocean just comes and takes the whole beach away. And so there's actually been no sand left. And so they literally have just been creeping and going back and back and back. And so this is really dedication to the fullest magnitude to show their love for Lahaina.
Eric, I'm going to give you the last words after I read this to you right here. I mean, will you go first, then Shelby will go, and we'll wrap up the show. It's almost 9 o'clock. We're almost time to get out of here. I meme, therefore I am, put on Twitter. New Salesforce billionaire. You can see the World Economic Forum stuff right there. Salesforce billionaire CEO Mark Benioff is quietly buying up vast tracts of real estate in Hawaii. Benioff is said to have conducted the land acquisitions using at least 6 discrete limited liability companies, each sharing an identical mailing address in the San Francisco Bay Area, along with one nonprofit organization. Are you awake yet? You can't make this shit up. When we talked about Governor Josh Green being the keynote speaker for Sustainable Cities, 15 minutes Sustainable Cities in the UN, and here we are. And let me tell you something. I don't know if you know this, Eric, that there have been people trying to buy up land in Lahaina for quite some time. The vulture capitalists have been trying to get a hold of that land for a while. And a lot of people in Lahaina dug their feet in and said, no, we're not going to budge. Lahaina, before it was colonized, the Hawaii that is, Lahaina was the capital. So there's so many indigenous locals and people that live there have been there for quite some time. This is scary. Are you awake yet? Eric, give us your thoughts.
Humanity has a herd immunity to tyranny. And if Lahaina, if the Lahaina residents have to sit on the beach with a whiteboard, I mean, I got chills looking at that. Every morning, I write a little note card of all of my goals for the day. It's so important. That is, I read Barack Obama's autobiography, and all he did was virtue signal how he was a community organizer, but he was getting paid the whole time, 80 grand a year. These people have nothing. They're real community organizers. They don't need to eat calories. They have a fire in their belly. They're using photosynthesis, and the righteous anchor of their ancestors is propelling them, and they don't get on board. They don't get on board meetings because they know too much, because they'll set fire to anybody with facts, a list of facts. And so when the goal is 15-minute cities, when the goal is colonization, when Hawaii started by killing the princess, the U.S. Army came by and shot the princess in a bog. That's how we took over Hawaii. And so if you follow that through, it's the same people, the same thought process. Oh, it's a nonprofit, me stealing the resources from San Francisco. Meanwhile, a homeless veteran is taking a shit in front of my condo on ecstasy and fentanyl. But I'm so smart, you know, I've got education. So I have 20 LLCs to shield me and call myself a nonprofit to steal land from locals instead of putting one tiny house in a rainforest. Oh my God.
Eric, I love you, brother. Shelby, your thoughts on this, and then we're going to say our goodbyes because it's 9 o'clock. But I mean, Holy cow. I mean, your book, right? Like Burn Back Better. And you had talked about these people now, right? So all their documentation got burned up in the fire. So now they go down and to get their documentation, it's all digitalized now.
Yeah.
Now it's all in the system right now. Now we're plugged in. Now it's easy to put you on one of those vaccine passports that we talked about for quite a while, right?
Well, and let me say in another note of that, that's a really interesting way that I think they're assisting in their own land grab is that when people's documents did burn down, they went to go get the digital copy. And this is a story from a pure Hawaiian man. So I'm just repeating what his experience. He went to get his birth certificate and they said, well, we can give you a copy of it. And he goes, no, I want the original. No, we don't have originals anymore. That ended in 2000, whatever. And so we can give you a digital copy of your certificate. And he goes, well, I guess if that's the only thing you'll give me. When he gets it back, they changed his ethnicity. It no longer said Hawaiian. It said Asian mix. He is a pure Hawaiian that can trace his bloodline back for centuries. And they took it and they said, you're not Hawaiian, you're an Asian mix. And now how is he supposed to prove that besides giving his own DNA, genetics? So what about these legacy, lands? They're supposed to be held in the hands of Native Hawaiians. And they're even going as far as to say, you're not even Hawaiian anymore. So it is just like, when does it end? It kind of feels like it's the Twilight Zone, or, every day, especially living here and watching so many people just continually deal with this suffering. It fills me with really like so much anger, but I know that the truth can be revealed and the darkness will be shown out by the light. It looks really like a despair moment right now. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better, but I think that something is coming that's going to change the narrative entirely. And what I mean is I think that there's some whistleblowers that are finally going to step forward and they're going to start talking about what happened in Lahaina, and we're going to finally show the people a different experience of what their perception is, and hopefully that will indict real change. People need to stop looking to these leaders who caused this to begin with. They're not leaders, they're criminals, they're whatever they are.
That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And let me tell you this much, just in closing that, putting a bow on that section. The one thing I saw about the people of Lahaina, the people of Maui, if there's anybody out there where you said you rest with the wrong people, it's those people in Lahaina, it's those people in Maui. I look forward to seeing them stand up and fight for what's right and not just walk away. But that sign on that Lahaina Strong Beach over there, a local family leaves Maui every day. That's the sad part. The whole purpose of me covering that story and telling that story to the world and using Jimmy Dore's platform to yell it from the rooftops and using his megaphone was to make sure that we can find a way to help the people of Maui stay in Maui. And to see them, some of those people, one of the things that you said to me, one of the biggest takes from my last trip there, Shelby, was the fact that you said so many people have been beat over the head. They're just giving up. They're done now. They're just taking whatever the government tells them. They've had enough. They don't want to deal with it anymore. They're throwing in the towel. So hopefully some of those people who are standing up and fighting can find a way to give them energy the way Aaron Bushnell gave a lot of us energy to keep fighting in that whole Gaza situation.